Welcome back to the Payal Nanjiani Leadership Podcast. This is your host, Payal Nanjiani, and we have with us today in our studios none other than Jason Lippert. Jason is the president and CEO of LCII Industries listed on the New York Stock Exchange. LCII is a global manufacturer of components and engineered solutions for recreational vehicles, marine and transportation industries with over 90 divisions and 14,000 team members worldwide. Jason has had an intense focus on building strong teams and bettering our communities and growing the company significantly with new products and innovations. And today he joins us on the Payal Nanjiani Leadership Podcast to talk about developing a culture of care. Jason, welcome to this episode, and it is such an honor to have you here with us.
Well, Payal, I really appreciate you inviting me to your podcast. Thank you.
I think there would not be anyone better than you to talk about this subject of culture of care, because I was just reading, about LCII and how you really brought up this culture. So as we get deep into this conversation, Jason, before I begin, I know I have not read even half of your bio. There was so much of accomplishments you had. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you get to do what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, I've been with the same company for 28 years. So after college, it was a family-owned business at the time, much smaller, less than $100 million in revenues. We're $5 billion today. Mm-hmm. But when I came to the business, I started welding and worked in one of our weld shops and learned the business from the ground up. And that's where I learned about business and management or leadership. I watched the people that were directly leading me. And unfortunately, a lot of those examples were, really bad and horrible. And, a lot of cultures in the 90s, I think it was just all about bottom line, top line, all about doing whatever it took to win. What I learned over my career is, how do you win the right way versus, just winning in general. So, I ran some manufacturing facilities, and ultimately started an RV products division up, which is the crux of our business today. It's about $3 billion of our $5 billion in business. So put up a lot of facilities, brought a lot of people to the company. Ultimately, got us into some, as I took over the responsibility for the company after we became public. Got into some other industries, and today we're in several different industries and markets, and you have about 15,000 people and $5 billion in revenues, and, build a lot of really cool products and manufacture most of that here in the United States. So,
yeah. So you've grown up in an entrepreneurial environment. Am I right?
Yeah, I'd say for the most part.
Okay, so I think that would have come as a lot of learning, because, as compared to someone who has, worked in a corporate and then stepped out, what would you say? Would that be like a lot of learning that has come naturally to you?
Yeah, I think, part of it is it's, what the leadership allows you to do in business. If they give you a really confined space, it's really hard to be entrepreneurial or creative and innovative, in the business. So I didn't have a lot of boundaries, because we were kind of just creating a business. So we kind of, developed our own business rules and, business along the way. And ultimately, it came to, after 15 years of just a lot of growth and success, and, a lot of top line growth and, stock price growth and awesome returns for our investors. After 15 years, I was just kind of wrestling with God and like, what, is this all that life's about? Is this all that business is going to be about? It's just the next year, the next level of growth for the company, the business. So for me, it was, that's when I started thinking about, culture and how we can steward the lives of the people that, that are, we have the privilege to lead every day. Today we have 15,000 people. So how are we stewarding the lives and pouring in and impacting the people, the men and women that come to work for our business for 40 hours a week? That's a long time. And that's a lot of impact we can have. And we just started asking ourselves, how can we change the impact that we're having besides just providing a paycheck?
Okay. So you used a word here, you just said a word which really caught my attention. And you said, I didn't know any boundaries. What does that mean? Like when you said in business, I didn't learn any boundaries. Talk a little bit about that. That was really interesting.
Yeah, well, they didn't teach us in college how to build a business and develop a business. So, it was much just kind of a big playground, and we saw opportunities, and we had some capital to invest and develop a business. So, we could have gone 100 different ways, and we tried a lot of things, and we're innovative, creative, and that's being entrepreneurial. You don't get that opportunity unless the boundaries are kind of limitless. If you're boxed in, like I said, it's really hard to be entrepreneurial or innovative.
And you're just absolutely right. I think most of us, what happens is we put boundaries on ourselves. And because of that, we feel, hey, you know what, we need to play by the rule books. So for you, what's a typical day like? Like as a CEO of a company, what does a typical day look like for you? Because I know your schedule. We've been trying to, get in touch with each other. So I know how your schedule is, but I'm sure our listeners would love to know what is a typical day like for you.
Yeah, so it's changed over the last 3 decades I've been in business. As we've grown into more of we're a Fortune 1000 business today, and we've got a very structured business, but we've got a lot of different industries that we play in, and I try to spend enough time in each one of those business segments. But I think the most important thing for me on a weekly basis, and I'm leaving this meeting to go talk to our front lines at one of our facilities. I just try to make time a couple times a week to get in front of our frontline leaders and businesses, and just talk to the people that are on the front lines of our business making the products. There was a time in my career where I got away from that as we grew the business, and we had to develop structure, and I just got away. I started out in the plants, as I told you, welding the products that we make today.
Yeah.
And as I got away from that, I got away from the front lines. And, I think as I've become more connected to the front lines intentionally, I stopped doing a lot of things in my schedule that I was doing and prioritize, making sure I'm on the front line. 95% of our team members, our 15,000 people, are on the front lines of our business making products. So it's really important for me and to demonstrate that example to the rest of the leaders in the business, that we have to stay connected to the men and women that are making we want to show them that they're important, and make sure they understand.
Hands-on.
Yeah, you got to be hands-on.
So
I spend a lot of my week doing that. I do have executive level meetings and try to hit all the different functions of the business that need to make an impact as well. So it's really you really got to be good at our size at time management and spending time in the right places. You want to be effective. So
true. And like you said, you're hands-on, you're going to be out there, you're with the people. So when did you realize that creating a culture of care is necessary in your organization?
Yeah, so I told you I was wrestling and having a lot of conversations with God about what purpose and meaning in life looks like, and in business. I'm spending a lot of time in the business, 60 plus hours a week, and purpose and meaning past just growing a business and providing a way of life for 15,000 people, or a work life for 15,000 people. But you might know Bob Chapman. You might have run into him in some of your world someplace, but he was a really good mentor to me, and he had written a book and done a TED Talk. He's a manufacturing company. He was about the same size when I came across him in 2011. But it was a TED Talk that he did called Truly Human Leadership. It just turned the light bulb on for me. It just made me realize that, instead of, using people to make progress in the business, how do we use their talents, but also pour into them and treat them like human beings and shepherd them in life, provide a way for them to grow and develop as human beings and not just workers, not just part of a business team. So, in 2011, we kind of made that progression and said, we're going to do some things differently. And we started with a values journey, and we didn't have core values for the business. I just never believed in it. I just always have felt that, a lot of companies put that on the wall and then don't do anything about it. So it's just, how do you live? How do you show up at work day in and day out? But when you don't have that crystallized for people, it's hard to talk about who you are. So we developed values, and then the best thing we did was we just started holding people accountable to the values every day. And eventually, a lot of people that didn't want to do that, live and align themselves with the values, they weren't with the company. And we found ourselves over 10 years on this journey now, where we've got a lot of people that are aligned to the values, and that just gives us so much more momentum. But Bob Chapman's the one that really, helped me pivot and understand, what culture really is and what it can really do, and ultimately the impact that it can have on, the people's lives in the business. Because if we're really working to grow and develop them, they're not just leaving that at the office or the workplace, the manufacturing floor, and the teammates around them. They're taking that home to their families, and their families can improve if they're really treated well at work and feel empowered, and they're growing and developing as a human being. I think all those things make the world a better place, because there's a ripple that exists.
Yes, absolutely, and especially after the pandemic. Do you think empathy and care is like, are they parallel? Are they two sides of the same coin, or are they completely different?
I think they're real similar. I think they're both super necessary, and you can't fake it. So
True.
Your team members around the business, they know if you really care. And caring about people is one of our core values. So if we're going to try to develop the trust in the people and build relationships so that we can do amazing things in this business and get them to want to stay here for the long term, we've got to have that trust and develop relationships. But ultimately, we have to show authentically and intentionally that we do care about them. And, we do a lot of things in the business that, we don't just say, hey, we care about you, and that's the end of the story, and try to do our best. We have a lot of resources in place that show our people that we have a philanthropy staff that engages our team members to serve regularly. We have a leadership coaching staff that helps our frontline men and women that have never had a leadership coaching session in their life. We've got 10 or so people on our staff that just coach our men and women on the front lines of our business. We've got personal professional development staff that help with life plans and personal and professional growth plans and things like that. We've got a chaplaincy staff. So we've got a lot of resources in place, so we can say, hey, look, we don't just talk about caring. This shows you that. And they've got experience with most of them have worked at other companies, and they've never encountered a company that has those kinds of resources dedicated to the people, so we can put our money where our mouth is.
And like you said, it's not just about coming out there and saying, hey, you know what, I really want to show that I care for you. It's about the things that you are doing at Lippert, that the amount of resources you're providing and empowering the people. I think care, creating a culture of care is more action oriented. It shows in your behaviors and in the way you are, the actions that you take towards your employees, then just going out there and, the entire word empathy has become so overrated and overused these days.
That's right. You're right on.
Very much. So you spoke about shepherding. Touch a little bit about that, because even earlier when you and I connected, this was a word that caught my attention, and you tried to align it with parenting. I would love to hear on that.
Yeah. So that's just been one of the epiphanies for me in this whole culture journey, is that, ultimately, if we want our people to stay with the business a long time, going back to the caring, we have to show them that we care. And really we talk about caring, but we can intermix the word love in there too. I mean, we need to love the people that are here. We need to really care about them. If you care about them, you probably, can say the word love. We just don't use that in the workspace that often, but it's the same with our kids. And, we love our kids. We care for them. We want to grow and develop them. The more they grow and develop and learn, the more likely the successful, contributor to society and the more successful human being they're going to be. But you got to give them the coaching and the love, and that's where that shepherding, sort of use the shepherding term. But we're trying to do that with our people today. I mean, my goal is, we want 15,000 servant leaders in this business. We want to teach people, that being a servant leader that's the kind of leader in person we want in the business, whether you're leading people or not. We want you to just show up as a servant leader. But at the same time, we also want, personal and professional growth plans for every human being in the business that are written down, that are well thought out. We give them time in the business to do. I don't know any other businesses that are doing that, where they want every single human being. We're a manufacturing company. It's not like we've got, we're just a company of 100 executives, and, a lot of executives have maybe personal and professional growth plans. But when you talk about men and women on the front lines of a manufacturing business, that's just not typical. But that's what we want for our people, because if our people are growing and developing, they're going to care more for the business and the people around them. Ultimately, they go home a little bit happier and, mentally and emotionally and physically healthier. Because of that kind of culture of caring, and that's just spills over into the families. And, that's what the family units need these days, I think. It's more of that, but.
So this entire word, like you said, shepherding, there is so much of changes happening now around in our environment, in our work environment, and everyone wants to know about disruptions and revolutions. Are you seeing any revolution when it comes to company culture? Because you've been in this work for decades and you've seen it in people in your family doing this. So have you seen any revolution when it comes to company culture, or do you feel there is going to be something more that will revolutionize this entire concept of company culture?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. I think we're on the brink of a revolution globally. At least I'd say at least in North America. That's where I'm most familiar with businesses and what they're doing. I talk to a lot of businesses. People are waking up, to the fact that there is a different way to do business. Culture's been a buzzword for 20 years. People didn't do much about it. They just talked about it for a while, and companies are starting to wake up, and leaders are starting to wake up that, there's multiple stakeholders in the business. There's the communities factor, there's the customers, there's the team members, and there's the shareholders. For the last 20 years, the focus has just been on largely the shareholders, which drives everybody to go right to the top and bottom line numbers of the business and focus there.
True. I think profits was, the main focus in so many years.
Yeah. Capitalism is awesome, and it's really a huge piece of what makes the United States great, and provides so much opportunity. But we have to temper capitalism and make sure it's well balanced and not too skewed one way or the other. And that's where I see leaders around the United States waking up. I consult with a lot of leaders that are asking questions, that see what we do, either through word of mouth, they hear it through word of mouth, or they're hearing real stories from people, or they're seeing it on social media, or they're seeing, videos or podcasts or whatever. I'm talking to a lot of these leaders, and they're asking the right questions. And, for me, once the light bulb came on, there's no way to shut it off. I don't want to go back to the way we used to run the business. And I think that every other leader that does that will find it. So I think, the more and more light bulbs get turned on, the closer, the further into the revolution we get. But it's coming.
And I don't think we would be able to do business the way we did earlier. There is so much of change everywhere. And, Jason, we all know that now, as we see the snow flying out, and it's going to be another round of recession here in America, and followed by, global inflation. During these times, with so much of layoffs happening, hiring freezes, and with just so much going on in the environment, what would be your advice to the leaders?
Yeah, look, I tell our people all the time, we always have, 5 or 6 good years, and then there's a period of, cyclicality where we go the other way. You just have to be prepared for it and accept it, and, not be so negative about it. I think the more you embrace, the downturns, and we tell everybody around our business, hey, look, if you're aligned to the values, you're leaning in and you're leading yourself well, you're leading your team well, we'll find a place for you. And we don't want to lose people like that. And we know that recessions and these cyclical downturns are short term. So, fortunately we built up a a good balance sheet over the years, and we can, we know there's a period of growth coming. So it would be silly for us as a company to go and just move a bunch of people out of the business only to turn around in 6 more months probably, or give or take, and then have to hire a bunch of people back. You lose quality momentum, you lose safety momentum, you lose efficiency momentum. I mean, you almost turn yourself back years, and why would you want to do that? I'd rather stomach the cost for a little while or find creative ways to do that, and then just pick right up where we left off when business picks back up versus, do some of the other stuff that people traditionally do.
Yeah, I like the optimism with which you said that, this is a passing phase. It's just a short period, and even if it's a little elongated, things are going to brighten up. The sun's going to be back, and the opportunities are going to be created. So I think that's a wonderful way to advise people to keep going during these times. Jason, before we,
especially if you're the leader, if you're the leader and you're walking around talking about the recession and it's just a negative connotation, I mean, you bring everybody else down. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think we don't realize that our energy is getting transferred down the line to everyone, and just the entire environment, and the entire atmosphere of the organization is impacted when you're saying the same thing over and over again, what you're already reading and hearing in the news.
All right, absolutely.
Wonderfully put, Jason. Jason, before we wrap up, there is a leadership rapid fire that we have. Okay, so.
Yeah.
These are quick, very quick. Whatever comes to your mind, at the top of your mind, the very first time when you hear these questions and it comes to the top of your mind, that's the honest answer we want from you.
Okay. I might have to say pass too. So.
Okay. You won't have to say pass. I think so. Okay, let's begin. The biggest leadership myth you've ever heard?
The biggest leadership myth I've ever heard. I think that, it's in the realm of culture. I think it's just, that hard work and barreling through things will solve all your problems. It's about relationships and.
True. One thing that motivates you to get out of bed in the morning, even today.
Oh, I just love. I love the impactful stories I've heard. I got a box of letters under my desk, and they're just letters that team members have written me from all over the business, all the way down the front lines of our business, just telling me that they're thankful that the culture and the leadership that we have has impacted their life in some way, shape, or form. And in a lot of the letters, I hear where it spills over into their families, where it's I'm a better husband, I'm a better wife, I'm a better parent to my kids because of the leadership and the values that we're so. So that's what gets me. That's what gets me out of bed each and every day.
Have a deep purpose, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Your favorite part of being a leader?
Just what I just talked about. It's just, having that impact and influence to ultimately help, family units get stronger. I think, that's not something people really talk about or even think about as business leaders, but we definitely can have that impact, good or bad, based on how we lead people and impact people. So.
Okay. Which superpower would you rather have, invisibility or mind reading?
No, invisibility would be great, just to disappear and watch things and just disappear sometimes, not be.
Wow. Would you disappear out of your zone where you are into another world altogether, or would you just disappear for some relaxation?
Oh, no, I'd like to a little bit of both.
Okay, great. Your biggest leadership challenge?
It's just the human factor. We're all human beings, and we're all broken and have opportunities and issues, and what you might be fine for a period, and then all of a sudden something happens in your life, and when you bring 15,000 people that are all having opportunities and just human opportunity, it makes business really challenging. I think that's the one thing that makes business challenging for all of us, is that just that unknown.
True, the uncertainty which is going on these days, especially. Wow. Jason, to wrap this up, if you could travel back in time and change one thing about the business or the corporate world, what would that be?
Oh, I had taken this message that we have on culture and leadership, and just the fact that tell my younger self that hey, put somebody in culture and leadership in your business. Put somebody that's in charge of culture. Don't put it on HR. They're already busy enough. Put somebody in charge of culture in the business and create a staff. I would have done that, 20 years ago if I would have known better. But hey, better late than never.
I like the way you started off the session with culture and how you really looped in and ended it the same way with culture. And especially the part that you said, I really haven't heard this very often in companies, that you've got to have someone take charge and take, just to take control of the culture and be in charge of the culture so that they know how it's been following. And I think you've done a great work at Lippert to bring this out, and the way you've turned around the entire company. I am so glad that I have had you talk about culture. So thank you so much, Jason, for your time and for taking the sharing your insights and being on this podcast.
Sure thing. If anybody out there wants to talk about culture, one of my passions and purposes and missions is to, help people. So I'm not bashful if people reach out to me on social media just to help them, figure some things out if I can be helpful. So.
Wow. And they can reach out to you.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn, yeah.
Yes. Super. That's great. Thank you so much, Jason. And to all our listeners, this is Jason Lippert and Payal Nanjiani wishing you loads of success. God bless.
Thanks, Payal. God bless.